Hello and welcome to the first part of the 3 videos on the major disasters that took place in the 1300s. The Great Schism, the bubonic plague and the 100 Years' War. These 3 events took place during the 1300s in the Middle Ages in Europe, and they led to the weakening of the church and the church's power, the development of the English and French government and the monarchies having more power, and changes in population, etc. In this video I'm going to explain number 1, the Great Schism. Okay, so hopefully you remember in the previous video about France and the development of its government, that Philip IV came into conflict with the Pope over taxes. Well, here in this slide you can see the law that the Pope, or the papal bull, sorry, it's not a law. Papal bull is a document written by the Pope, signed by the Pope, an official church document. And in this papal bull, the clericos laicos in 1295, according to the Pope, did not have to pay taxes to the king. Well, this led to the disagreement between Philip IV and the Pope. And this in turn led to the formation of the Third Estate in the Estates Generales in the French government. However, it also led to further conflict and controversy between Philip IV, the French king, and the church. Then, in response to Philip IV's refusal to listen to this papal bull, to follow the papal bull, the Pope, and his name is Pope Boniface VIII, then releases another papal bull, which says that all kings must obey the Pope. Okay, you have it here, the Unam Sanctum. However, it doesn't solve the problem, and we see in the next slide what Philip IV's reaction is. So Philip IV, instead of listening to the papal bull that says he should obey the Pope, actually ignores it. He finds it quite hilarious in a sense, and he has the Pope kidnapped and taken prisoner, Pope Boniface VIII. His intention is to bring him to trial. However, the Pope is rescued, I think, a month later, and then he dies. And now they need a new Pope. And Philip sees his chance here. He convinces the council who appoints popes to choose a French Pope, Clement V, in 1305. And he also manages to have this Pope live in Avignon in France. Okay, so this is the first time the Pope has not lived in Rome. He's now living in Avignon. Okay, so the Avignon Papacy lasts 69 years. Okay, so the popes live in Avignon for 69 years. But it's not all peace and tranquility. In 1378, the Avignon Pope Gregory the 11th dies. And this is the chance for the church to move the papacy back to Rome. Okay, so they choose another pope and he lives in Rome. The pope chosen is Urban VI. However, he's not a great pope, and the archbishops regret their decision almost immediately because he's very arrogant. Their solution is, let's choose another pope, which they do, and they choose Clement VII. However, Urban VI refuses to step down as pope. So now we end up with 2 popes. Each try and excommunicate the other. The fact that there are 2 popes now is what is called and known as the Great Schism. The Great Schism means the Great Divide. Okay, because there's a big divide in the church. Different countries follow the one pope and some countries follow the other, which I'm going to show you in this map. Because Pope Clement VII, the second pope elected, decides to live in Avignon, and Pope Urban VI remains in Rome. And now in this map you can see which countries followed the Avignon Papacy and which followed the Roman Papacy. Okay, so in an attempt to end the Great Schism, a council in Pisa is a city in Italy, a council of other clergy, decide that they can kind of maybe force the other popes to resign, or not honour them, or threaten them with excommunication, and they end up appointing a 3rd pope. So it doesn't work out, and now there are actually 3 popes. So as you can see on the map, we have Clement VII in Avignon, Alexander V is the one that they appoint in Pisa, and Urban VI in Rome. So the first pope to be appointed after the supposed end of the Avignon Papacy was Urban VI. The archbishops regret their decision because he was arrogant and some other things, and so they appointed Clement VII, but Urban VI refused to step down. And finally, in 1409, the Pisan Council appoints Alexander V. So finally, in 1414, the Great Schism ends. A council is formed called the Council of Constance, which you can see a picture of here, well, a drawing representing it. And its aim was to end the schism. So the Council of Constance, along with the Holy Roman Emperor of the time, finally convinced all three popes, Clement VII, Urban VI, and Alexander V, to resign. And they finally appoint one new final pope, Martin V, and this event has not reoccurred since. Okay, so there were consequences to this Great Schism. I think it's pretty obvious what the consequences are. Number one would be that the church's power and authority is weakened, and it loses quite a bit of respect, because obviously it's a bit of a farce, a bit embarrassing that at some point they ended up with 2 and then 3 popes. I mean, you can imagine how confusing it would be trying to figure out which pope you were supposed to be paying attention to, considering they're God's representative on earth, and therefore the normal population, it certainly affected their opinion. Another thing that really weakened the church, and was around the same time as the Great Schism in the 1400s, was a man called John Wycliffe. Well, he preached to people that the true head of the church was Jesus Christ, not the Pope, that people should really just follow Jesus' example and not the Pope, and also that the Bible should be where we search for God's word and not listen really to the clergy, because he was offended by the wealth and corruption of the clergy. He also promoted people reading the Bible in their vernacular, specifically English, okay, so that they could read and understand and interpret God's word themselves without needing the intermediary of a priest. And thirdly, another man, Jan Hus from the Czech Republic, also agreed with John Wycliffe that the Bible was higher than the Pope. So you should look to the Bible, the teachings in the Bible, before listening to the Pope. The church did not agree with this at all and considered him a heretic, someone that was going against the church, and they had him burnt at the stake in 1415.